Good morning, everyone, to the webinar from the FAME project on the European Common Evaluation Methodology for CCAM. It is exactly a year ago that we had a webinar on this topic, where we talked about the draft methodology and the draft handbook. And I'm very happy now to start this meeting on the final handbook of the European Common Evaluation Methodology. This webinar will be recorded and it will be placed on the knowledge base a bit later, so you can watch it back. If you have questions, don't use the chat, but use the Q&A button. And you could write down your question there. I would say let's start and see what we have for you this morning. I'm Yvonne Barnard from the University of Leeds, and I'm part of the team that developed the methodology. And we will have presenters from that team. But first we will start with an introduction to the FAME project, and our project coordinator Stefan Dreher will present that. Then we get from Satu Inema an introduction to the EU-CEM, as we call the Common Evaluation Methodology. The guidelines for the project preparation phase from Isabel Wilming from TNO. The guidelines for developing an evaluation plan, again Satu. Evaluation area specific guidelines from Elena Aitonimi from VTT. We have hopefully some time for some questions. And we will end showing you where you can find more information and what will be the next step. But let's start with the FAME project. Stefan?
Thank you, Yvonne. Good morning and welcome as well from my side to this webinar on the European Common Evaluation Methodology, which is one of the main achievements of the FAME project. So my name is Stefan Dreher. I'm head of CCAM at Ertico ITS Europe, and I'm having the pleasure of coordinating the FAME project. So my objective is to give you a very quick introduction to the FAME project, which I think most of you probably already know. So the FAME project is a research and innovation action, which has, however, a very strong coordination support component, which has as the main objective to support the coordination and alignment of research and innovation in Europe by building a framework for coordination of automated mobility in Europe and also maintaining the EU-wide knowledge base. The project involves 22 partners from 12 member states, and it's building on a long legacy of previous coordination and support actions. So what you will hear today was developed really based on more than 10 years of experience of projects and coordination actions together with a big stakeholder network that contributed to it. Just a quick overview of how the FAME project is structured. So it has three main components. The one off top is the CCAM stakeholder community and network. So here the idea is to extend or enhance the existing stakeholder network of the CCAM partnership by reaching out in particular to the international community. So we have a strong cooperation with Japan, US, and also now looking at cooperating with other countries beyond Europe. We also have a strong cooperation with the member states through the states representative group of the CCAM partnership. And we organize as well several events to support stakeholder consultation, like the EU-CAT conference, which will take place next week in Ispra, and organize also several stakeholder workshops and policy dialogues. Another very important component is the EU-wide knowledge base, which was built already in the previous projects, Arcade, and we are now maintaining it. So you have the link here below. So I really strongly invite all of you to really consult it and contribute to it, as this is really a tool meant for experts, but we need the input from experts to enhance and make and keep its content up to date. Then the third component is the actual research part of the project, which is the development of the European framework for testing on public roads. And this includes the common evaluation methodology, which you will hear about today, but as well as test and data exchange framework and some ethics aspects. With that, that's just for the short introduction, and would like to hand over to the team for the presentation about the EU-CEM. So thank you for joining this webinar, and see you soon. Thank you.
So it's time to reveal the final version of the European Common Evaluation Methodology for CCAM. Let's cut the ribbon. And there you see the handbook, and we will tell you all about it, starting with Satu Inema.
Thank you. So I will give you now a short introduction to the handbook itself. Like Yvonne said, 1 year ago exactly, we published a draft version of the handbook. And since then, we organized one summer school where we had a target audience, meaning junior members of different evaluation teams of CCAM projects participating. We had several small workshops. We got direct feedback for specific chapters from more than 30 external experts. We had a number of internal workshops. We went through the full manuscript in detail and edited and checked every single sentence and term and etc. We had a language revision. We had a new design, and now this is the outcome. So I hope that you will enjoy the new look and content of the handbook. So the readability of the handbook has been really one of the key aspects for us. And I really want to say big thanks to everybody who contributed. We really highly appreciate it, and all your good thoughts and well-placed feedback. I think that was really excellent, really necessary for the outcome. So thank you all for contributing. Briefly about the methodology and handbook for those who have not read the draft. So this is meant to be a European Common Evaluation Methodology for CCAM, and a handbook describing it. The objective of the methodology is to ensure high-quality evaluation, which provides high-quality input for decision and policy making, supporting both industry and authorities. And to do so, we need to provide a common vocabulary and common basis for different evaluations and different projects. We also want to share the good practices found for methodologies and the lessons learned, so that we can all benefit of those and do not need to make the same mistakes as the others have done. We had 5 principles guiding us throughout the development of the handbook, and those are also guidelines or the guiding principles for those using the handbook. So the handbook is meant to be this. We have the guiding star principle, so that it provides the minimum requirements for evaluation, so that everybody follows good practices. We have the collaboration principle, so that you will get the lessons learned of the others, but hopefully also share the best practices that you will find. We have the comply or explain principle, as the handbook is made for all CCAM use cases, and there are a number of different projects with different magnitudes, or they can be large, they can be small, different cases. So it might be that there are some guidelines which just do not fit to your project, and that's also fine. You can always explain if you didn't follow some guidelines and reasons behind those, because those are important lessons for the others, and also those are important input for the future updates of the handbook. Agility is really important in these big projects, where the technology is developing fast, the regulation maybe or is still developing, the test size and everything is really making progress, so that it's hard to set or describe everything in detail in the beginning of the project and assume then that those will remain as they were described the day one of the project. So also the evaluation team must adapt according to the developments during the project lifetime. So being agile is really important. And the flexibility means that the handbook must be made or was made such that you can adapt it to the needs of your project and to the research questions that you have. For whom it is? Well, it's meant obviously for those who are doing evaluation in those CCAM projects, but also for the project coordinators and proposal evaluators. So there are certain aspects, Isabel will later tell you about those good practices that will lay a solid foundation for evaluation. What type of activities? Well, you may do ex-ante impact assessment when you want to prepare for CCAM deployment. You can do ex-post evaluations. So when you have already deployed something, you want to find out about the impacts of that CCAM system or service. Or if you want to design a CCAM system so that you maximize societal benefits, that's also one way where you can use the method. The handbook is written for CCAM concepts, which can include any type of automation in road transport of people or goods. It's mainly meant for high level of automation, so levels 3 and up, with and or without connectivity. And what we had in mind was mostly the use cases on public roads. It might be also applicable for some other types of projects, but this was the concept that we had in mind when we wrote the handbook. Handbook has 5 chapters. First one is introduction, not visible here. The chapter 2 gives you guidelines already for the project preparation phase. So when you are writing a proposal, and that is because we found out that some of the challenges that the previous evaluations had really originated from some, let's say, hard decisions made from the evaluation viewpoint already in the proposal phase. So we want to make sure that there is a solid foundation for the evaluation already set when the project is being planned. And that's why already guidelines are covering that phase of the project. Then we have the chapter 3, where we give guidelines to the evaluation plan and how to make it. I will present that later. And then Elina will talk about these evaluation area specific guidelines and introduce different evaluation areas. Then we have a chapter 5, which is actually not presented in this webinar today, but that's giving a few guidelines for the reporting of evaluation outcomes. And yes, this common evaluation methodology is not the only contribution that FAME is providing for European testing of CCAM on public roads. So we have the entire framework, and this is one of the elements there, as you can see. So FAME is also producing other material. But now, Isabel, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Satu. Good morning, everyone. I will be briefly talking about the guidelines for the project preparation phase. Not going exactly how I wanted it to go. There we go. So this is chapter 2 in the handbook. And if you follow the guidelines, you should come to a very good description of action or project proposal, which I'm so sorry, I just have a very small screen. How do I get back to the larger screen?
If you are in the presenter mode, then you can click the 3 dots on, say, hide the presenter view.
Presenter view. This didn't happen before. Oh, it's not working for me. Anyway, I'll just have to make do with what I have right now. So how to lay a strong foundation for a successful evaluation? Because you do that already in the proposal preparation phase. And once the project has been granted, you continue to do that or elaborate it further in the project's initial stages. So there are two parts to laying that strong foundation. And the first part of it is the scoping of the evaluation, which you need to do because the impacts of CCAM can be wide-ranging. And we'll see that later in this webinar. So you need to do scoping and you need to do prioritization. Which are the impacts that you really want to look at and which are the ones that are nice to have if there is room for it. The scoping should ensure that the commitments made during the proposal phase can actually be executed during the project phase, so that you have a consortium that has expertise and tools that align with the project scope and that the scope aligns with the consortium's expertise and tools. The second part of laying a strong foundation has to do with the project structure and the governance of the project. Because CCAM projects can be large and complex, often with immature technologies, which means that all sorts of things can happen during the project. And also often you have costly data collection, so you want to get things right. And a logical and easy to understand project structure facilitates good governance and ultimately also good project management. So we have 10 guidelines for the project preparation phase, 3 to do with the scoping and 7 to do with the structure and governance. So for the scoping, we have guidelines about, what do these guidelines actually discuss? Well, they discuss things that may seem trivial for anyone who's done projects before, but in our experience, some of them turn out to be more difficult than expected. And it's worth checking out whether your project considers the topics mentioned in these guidelines. As such, it's sort of a checklist. Did we consider this? And each guideline gives recommendations based on experiences from previous projects, also with the best practices, and provide also some specific examples that you can get some inspiration from. So for the scoping, we have guidelines on how to set the overall scope, and also how to choose the impact areas that you want to consider and how to build that consortium that is fit for the evaluation scope. If we look a little bit closer at guideline 2.1, how to set the overall scope, then, well, it starts with something simple like the scope can be derived from call text or any document that expresses the client's wishes. But also things like that it's important for all in the consortium to have a shared goal for the whole project and also for the evaluation. That you need to specify key terminology to avoid misunderstandings that happen quite often in practice. The taxonomy that is also on the knowledge base may be helpful there. Also, you need to say something about the targeted level of the evaluation, which can be anything from the vehicle level, single vehicle level to the level of society. The scope can be structured around numeric targets or expected key impacts or societal challenges that you want to address, or it can be about, well, what is the actual demand for new knowledge that this project should address. And finally, you have to look out for unrealistic expectations in the call text because you only want to make realistic commitments. The guidelines for the project structure and governance are about how to plan the evaluation activities, how to create a project structure that supports evaluation, how to assign responsibilities across work packages and activities, how to ensure that information exchange takes place in a good way, how to enable adaptivity of the evaluation, how to ensure the quality of the evaluation, and how to set a process for mediating conflicts. Because no matter how nice your consortium is or how knowledgeable, there might always be things that happen that result in some kind of conflict that you want to resolve. If we look a little bit closer at guideline 2.7 about information exchange, then this guideline is about how throughout the project partners must make joint decisions about the evaluation. And so in the project preparation phase, it's already important to agree on the main structures for active dialogue between partners and also collaboration within the evaluation team, but also with other partners such as the technical team, the test site team, the data owners, which may or may not be different partners each time. And a good project structure can help to keep communication lines short, which is what you want, because you don't want to have to go through 7 partners to get to who you need to contact. Online collaboration tools are useful there, as are regular virtual or in-person meetings for communicating about progress, but also for resolving issues, fostering alignment, and doing expectation management. And it helps to have an evaluation lead that can facilitate all this. That was it for chapter 2. Over to Satu again.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm back and I will tell you about the guidelines for developing an evaluation plans once you start the project, so that you are already in that phase. And this is where it was placed on this structure of the description of the handbook elements. So this is the main illustration describing the elements of an evaluation plan. And you obviously need to have a good description of the CCAM system or service that you are evaluating. It sounds very trivial, but it is really good to make a written description so that everybody shares the same understanding, because otherwise you may have a risk that people are having slightly different views, etc., and that will then lead to problems later on if the understanding of the concept and the system service is different for different partners. So that is like the basis for everything. Then something that is like the backbone and is the beginning of the development for the evaluation plan is that you need to set initial list of research questions. Often there are plenty of research questions. Usually the evaluation team is creative. They are interested in many things. So one important aspect is here to be able to prioritize and also check those research questions which are not feasible and drop them out, because eventually we want to have an evaluation plan which is possible to be implemented in practice. You want to minimize the surprises and things that do not go as planned in the end of the project when the evaluation is taking place. So this is why it's really important. Once you have initial list of research questions, you start planning of the evaluation methods, what kind of tools to have, what kind of indicators to calculate, and how to derive the most interesting aspects that you want to evaluate. Obviously, the experimental design, if you are in control, let's say you are doing simulations and collecting your data by simulation, then you have all the freedom, you can choose it. But especially when dealing with these real-world experiments, which is often the case in these CCAM projects, you need to negotiate with the test site team, because you may have a perfect experimental design planned for your evaluation, but it might not be possible due to many practical reasons at the test site. So the aim is that you find a solution which is okay for evaluation, but also okay from the practical implementation view for the test site team. So that's a negotiation that is really important. Another really important negotiation is that when you need data for evaluation from some other partners in the project, so you may have what we call here data owners. So you may have different partners owning different types of data. So you need to really go in detail and discuss why do you need data, for what purposes, what kind of data, in which format, and how it can be, if there is anonymization, for example, needed, how it can be done so that you are not losing the essence of the data, etc. And this all goes in iterations, but as said, often during the project lifetime, the technology gets more mature, the regulation may change, you may have some changes done at the test site or anything. So you need to be also flexible in your planning. So in parallel, when the project, other teams are planning or preparing the technology for testing and planning the test sites, you need to be able to adapt your plan according to the latest developments. And eventually, all these iterations have been done, and then you have the good evaluation plan. that you can then, let's say, call final and then start the implementation of it. Isabel and we've been talking about the guidelines. So this is what one guideline looks like. Here is the guideline 3.8. The text is rather small, but this is how to check the feasibility of research questions. So these guidelines, they always start with this how to. We wanted to have this format because it kind of was for us a guideline, or it guided us to make them very practical, so that we want really to explain kind of practical hints in such a manner that you can use them in real life easily. So we have provided these guidelines for all these 5 different elements of the evaluation plan, and they all come so that we have first the guideline, which explains you how to do something. Then there is an example, so how it has been applied in some context, and for some aspects, if we were aware of some material, some documents which explain this the same thing in more details. There is also the box further reading. Unfortunately, not for all of them, but for quite many. And that was all for the chapter 3. Elina, back to you.
So the chapter 3 that Satu just introduced, it gives this common guidance on how to develop an evaluation plan in general. However, the details on the approaches and indicators and methods that to be used in evaluation and impact assessment, they highly depend on which impacts are of interest. And therefore, this chapter 4 on evaluation area specific guidelines includes guidance and examples of methods specific to different evaluation and impact areas. I will shortly introduce this chapter, which is quite a long one because it has its own chapters for each of these areas. But in short, the EU-CEM Handbook considers 18 evaluation areas that CCAM can affect. And these areas are grouped into 4 levels. Each of these evaluation areas has their own subchapter, which the numbers are indicated in the figure. And these 4 levels are the vehicle, so covering immediate impacts on the vehicles, such as driving behavior and technical aspects. Then a human level, impacts on users, user behavior, people, mobility, travel behavior, and quality of life. The third level is the transport system, which covers aspects like logistics, traffic safety, traffic flow efficiency, energy, environment, accessibility. And the fourth one is then society, covering even wider impacts such as land use, equity, socioeconomics. And finally, you can see that the sustainability area, which is the 18th impact area, is placed next to the other areas as a cross-domain. And we chose this approach because the sustainability impact area is kind of a cross-domain area looking at the impacts found in all the other impact areas combined. And sustainability is related to the environment, society, and the economy. And most of the impact areas in this chapter relate one way or the other to that. And the EU-CEM makes a strong recommendation that all projects should reflect on their results from the viewpoint of sustainability, regardless of the impact areas chosen for evaluation. So even if you choose only a few of those, then you should still be able to make some conclusions about what it would mean for sustainability. And the format of this guidance, so each subchapter has 2 main parts. So introduction part, which gives definition for the evaluation area and scoping of the chapter, so high-level definition of what we mean with the area. And then there's some background explaining the key concepts and the relation of CCAM to those. And where applicable, a short overview of the theory. And in this introduction section, there's also a figure that shows the main components to consider for impact assessment of this area. Then the second part of these subchapters are guidelines, and there we included recommendations for common result indicators that should be calculated by all CCAM projects that look at this area. So there are 5 indicators per area, and also a short definition of what is meant by that, and units, so that is to help then better compare to other projects and to have a common way of calculating those. Then there is an impact pathway figure that shows the linkages that this area has to other evaluation areas, because even though each chapter is considered on its own, then of course impacts are highly related to each other, and there are they don't happen on their own, but they for many need for their assessment also outputs from other impact areas that then need to be included in the evaluation plan. And the impact pathway figure can help finding those linkages. Then there is a table and short guidance on the different approaches and methods that have been used to study these impacts of different impact areas in the CCAM context, and a short overview of the pros and cons of the methods and requirements. So what is needed, what kind of data or what kind of tools are needed to be able to use those methods. And then lastly, there are also pitfalls related to the methods or approaches that were identified from past projects, and actionable best practices on how these could be avoided. So then it's back to Yvonne.
Thank you, Elina, and thank you, Satu and Isabel. It's time for questions. You can put your questions in the Q&A.
Yvonne, there's already one question.
There is one question from Fred. How does the implementation of the project in mixed traffic look like? Satu, can you say something about that?
Okay, being part of projects which have done that, saying that, yeah, it's a process that takes a lot of time, because in addition to the project partners and the companies within project being ready for the real world implementation in mixed traffic, also you need to get all the permissions. So you need to have the technology must be approved to be roadworthy, and you need to have permissions for testing, and also often those permissions set you specific requirements, what type of driver, what time of day, where to drive, etc. And all of those aspects must be now respected when setting the evaluation plan. So even though you would love to have elderly people driving in rush hour traffic in Brussels city centre, if that is not allowed by the Brussels authorities, then you cannot do it. So then you need to come up with the second best solutions and to maybe have test track or simulators or something then done for your elderly people if that's not allowed in the real world. So obviously the safety comes first in these real world implementations, and you need to respect that.
Okay, Fred made a remark saying it will be interesting to see how 18 evaluation areas look like for different cities of the EU. I think we all agree on that, and I think the aim also for a common methodology is that you could look at different areas and different activities and different projects to see how that will look like for those different impact areas. We also have a question from Mark Vroegop. Where in the guidelines can I find guidance about involvement of national vehicle authorities?
Well,
Yeah,
the practices of the test site we left out of this, so this is only for the impact assessment focus. So there is somewhere else in that testing of the framework for testing on public roads. Yvonne, can you? Well, there is some kind of overview of the procedures in Europe, if I remember now correctly. So it is somewhere else inside that framework, but inside our common evaluation methodology that is not covered.
Yeah, you can find information about that on the knowledge base in the area about data and data sharing, and we can have a look later on where that is. So that's things are there still under construction, still the end of the project, which will be in June. But there you will find information about those aspects.
There's a small mention of it in guideline 3.23, how to plan the experimental design.
Okay, thank you. Mark wants to say something, or? Mark is happy with the answer. We have a question from George from the Emirates Mobility. Is there an existing entity implementing those guidelines physically?
All the guidelines. I guess no one has implemented these yet in this format. Let's say we had these couple of European flagship projects for automated driving, L3 pilot, which ended like 4 years ago, and now High Drive, which will end of this in November, and there we had large or huge resources for the whole project, and also good resources for evaluation and method setting. So there we have implemented many of the evaluation plan setting practices, and not exactly because it was done before this, but let's say many of the good lessons learned come from there. But all of these 18 impact areas, I don't think that any project has evaluated so far. So we are looking at the new upcoming projects. Likely nobody will evaluate all the 18 areas, but I hope that you will pick several of them and share your good practices and new lessons learned, and we will have a different mixture so that we can learn about these new aspects. So not the perfect model exists yet, unfortunately.
No, but there are projects that already worked with part of the methodology. For example, the MODI project, the French national project. So there are, because projects were involved in the whole development of the EU-CEM, and already started with using guidelines. We have a question from Marianne Rio. That's probably not how you pronounce it, but do you also consider how impacts in one area may influence another area? For instance, the interdependence between elements of transport system, logistics, and society. Maybe Elina, you can answer this question.
Yes, so we try to give guidance on how to consider the impacts from other areas. Of course, we cannot. For all the combinations, there would be so much to think about, and because we are not giving a very detailed guidance how to do things, but more this what to take into account. So, for example, in these impact pathways, pathway figures for each chapter, there are things that need to be considered from other areas, and for example, also related to these societal areas, so they can take into account, or they may need some indicators from another area. For example, from the traffic and transport areas, there may be some indicator, for example, related to emissions or local air pollution that is evaluated in the environmental impact area, but then that the output of that would be considered if you do, for example, livability analysis. Then the impacts on those pollution on health, for example. So we try to highlight those connections and highlight that the impact areas are not isolated, even though they have their own chapters, but it's recommended to look through those impact pathways and then determine what kind of other impacts would be needed if you want to assess impacts for one of the societal impact areas.
Okay, thank you, Elina. We have a question from Wolfgang Ponsweiser, who wants to thank us for the efforts. The approach seems highly related to perform a project, but if it's not a project, but for example, an initiative or the start of a company in operating automated vehicles, or a regulation authority that needs a procedure for evaluating readiness of the CCAM system in specific areas, is it possible to apply these guidelines there? So not the type of European project, but for companies and authorities to...
If I may answer. So if the initiative or company or the authority is interested in what are the societal impacts of CCAM, then yes. If they want to test the roadworthiness or the safety testing, etc., from the permission viewpoint, then there are other frameworks like from Sunrise and those others. So for testing of the safety of the technology before giving the permissions for driving on road. So those are let's say there are already existing frameworks elsewhere, and those are not covered here.
But if there is a start of a new company of an operator or some initiative, it might be worthwhile for them to consider what kind of impacts their new service will have. So I think it would be useful for them to think a little bit further than just how do we get these vehicles on the road, but also think about what it would mean from a wider societal perspective or for the transport system where it's operating.
Yeah, and we also discussed about different user scenarios and user behavior scenarios. So you can also try to optimize your system so that it serves the whatever community you had in your mind to serve, and you can compare different scenarios. So you can, if you plan either to implement it here or there, so you can do a comparisons like systematic comparison. This kind of scenario-based approach might work well there. Depends a bit what is the open question that you have that should be addressed by evaluation. But for sure there are elements for doing that in a systematic way.
Then we have a question from Emilio José Cachero. There were public road traffic authorities involved in the preparation of this handbook for CCAM. Were there public road traffic authorities involved?
I think there were a few, at least those who have worked at some road authorities at some point. But in the next steps, you will see how we will look from the member state viewpoints in the coming years.
We did receive also some feedback from people working at public authorities.
Yeah, we had some involved. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. If you have an urgent question. Yeah. Mehdi from ITEC, how does the methodology facilitate and foster collaboration among different stakeholders? As researchers, industry partners, politicians, etc.
I don't know, Isabel, do you want to answer or should I?
Yeah, it starts already in that project preparation phase where the researchers and the industry partners and any policymakers that are involved in the project will need to work together to make a good evaluation proposal. So yeah, there are several guidelines that go into this. but we don't have specific guidelines on how do you do a good collaboration. Like we don't have guidelines on how to do good project management. So everything that we describe is really focused on how does it work in a CCAM evaluation project. But obviously, we do talk a lot about collaboration and also about how to establish contact between different partners and how to sort of negotiate about, for instance, data delivery, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think this is very much highlighted throughout the first or the chapters 2 and 3. This kind of dialogue, so that you must have, and it's benefiting everybody. And also we have set some or reminded of putting into the milestone list of a project, so that you have like for project level agreement on certain things, and that requires good collaboration, good dialogue throughout the project. A few hints are given on that, or many hints are given on that, how to do it in practice, because I think that's really key for the success, that you have this good dialogue with those who are doing evaluation and those who are developing the technology and those who are setting with the sites and having the data. And there was also another question on this public-private partnership. So definitely in these projects there are partners, industry partners and service providers, and the whole structure is set so that everybody must respect. I mean, it's their business, it's their product, so that also the evaluation must be made in a way that this is fully respected, no benchmarking is done, etc. So the whole outcome must benefit all the parties, as it was very in the beginning, so that also the decision makers on the private side should learn something from these evaluations. So this is important for success of these activities.
Okay, thank you so much, for your questions and for the answers. We go to the next item. Where can you find more information? What can you do with the rest of your day if you want to know more about the handbook and the methodology? So we are going straight to we somehow lost our connection now. Yeah. We are going straight to the knowledge base, where you can find in the menu European Common Evaluation Methodology for CCAM. And that page has several buttons. You can, of course, download the full version of the handbook. We won't show you that now. You can also browse the handbook online in an interactive PDF reader. You can find an executive summary of 2 pages of the handbook, because the handbook has some 250 pages, if I'm right, Satu?
229, if I'm correct.
229. So if you just want to know quickly, there is a summary, but there is also a high-level overview of the EU-CEM. Yeah? And you go down a little bit. Yeah. So there you find the 5 chapters as discussed. If we go, for example, to chapter 3, the guidelines for developing an evaluation plan. Number 3. You find the different topics, the subchapters from that evaluation, the guidelines for developing an evaluation plan. And if you click on one of the boxes, for example, the CCAM system description, you find a short, high-level text about what you can find in that chapter. So it's not the methodology, it's just to give you some flavor of what can be found. And if you want to know more, of course, you have to go to the handbook. Yeah, if we go back. So maybe a short, go to chapter 4, the evaluation area specific guidelines. Yeah, if we go to society. So these are all these 18 different points. And if you go, for example, to livability, you find again short description, but you will also find a picture of the kind of things that are needed, usually coming from other evaluation area, to address the different elements of livability. Yeah, if you go back to the highest level, one back to home. Yeah, okay. The last button here is the supplementary material. Because we could not put everything in the handbook, and there is information that is very useful. For example, the checklists and templates. We have checklists like the indicator checklist that tells you what kind of indicators we think should be common among projects, a reporting template, a short checklist where you can see whether your project complies with the EU-CEM, and some other information and checklists that might be useful for doing your evaluation. Yeah, if we go back. Yeah, there are some examples that could not be put in the handbook because they are somewhat more complicated or more elaborate, and you can find those and see them in PDF or download them. And finally, there are, if you go back, there are additional methods and approaches, sometimes coming from other projects. And if you are in a project and you think you have some interesting additional methods or a different approach, for example, we have here the Symphonica participatory approach. Let us know, and we can see whether we can put that up on the knowledge base. So that's it for the EU-CEM. We had a question about the framework. If you go to the data sharing, yeah, you will find here more information about some of the things we said, and that is going to be updated. Yeah, I'll try to go back to our main. I struggle to go back to our.
You share your screen again because we lost it.
Yeah. Okay. We should be back.
Yes, now it would be time for the next steps. So the second last slide.
Yeah, it's
okay. Maybe I can start talking while.
Just 1 moment.
Isabel is scrolling. Yvonne is scrolling through the.
Yeah, it's scrolling. So again, all this information is can be found with this link. What you saw is coming around all the time is this feedback form. If you go to a page on the knowledge base, you will find a feedback form, and we love to have feedback. So if you want to get in contact with us, or if you want to say something about the methodology, please use this button. And then we go to Satu telling us what the next steps will be.
Yes. So we have put a lot of lessons learned during the past decade in how to do evaluation and especially impact assessment of CCAM into this handbook. And but obviously we are not done yet. We know that there are good practices out there. We know that we will do new learnings, and all of that should be also shared. Luckily, there is already a coordination and support action starting now in the beginning of June. So in a few weeks from now, it's called CCAM Ambassador. Stefan is also the coordinator of that project. And this CCAM Ambassador will take over the ownership of the handbook next. And this project will has some also obviously other activities, but also the activities related to EU-CEM relate to the promotion of the EU-CEM, so to make sure that everybody doing evaluation of CCAM is aware of it and can benefit the good practices found. And it will also produce a lot of training material that will support its use, so that we will do online training modules and other activities, so that it will make it easier, so that it's 229 pages if I'm correct, and that may seem like a lot, so we will do some material that will make it easier to start using it or learn how to use it, etc. We will obviously collect feedback from all the EU-CEM users, so projects, initiatives, practitioners, service providers, whoever, those who are using it. We would love to see where does it work, where doesn't it work, what is missing, and all those. There will be a specific focus point on the member states. So we had very much EU projects in mind when we started this thing. The next thing that we will very closely browse through is how to use the methodology in the EU member states, so that not only on EU level projects, but also on the national project could use it. And then eventually we will revise the handbook based on all the feedback that we have received. So this will be the next 3 years, and there will be material published quickly in the knowledge base, this connectedautomateddriving.eu/methodology, but then there will be a major update of the handbook coming in 3 years from now. And having 1 minute left, perfectly fine.
I think you answered also Mark Vroegop's question about is the knowledge base also regularly updated? Because we are working on innovations and things are moving. And the answer is yes. The knowledge base each page has a date, so you can see whether it's old stuff or it's really, really new. But it will be regularly updated also in the coming month till the end of the FAME project, and then Ambassador will take over. Okay, time to go. Thank you very much on behalf of the FAME team for your participation. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and I hope you will go to the knowledge base and browse a bit more to see what you can find there. Thank you all very much.